All right, everybody. Welcome to our wellness lunch break. We're really excited to have everyone here. Please share in the chat where you're from as you're coming in, and hopefully you guys have gotten some food, got some snacks nearby, whatever the case may be. No matter what time it is in your state, it's probably time to snack on something. So we're excited to have you. And Laura and I are here to host this wonderful lunch break with you. And I'm trying to figure out. There we go. That's how I go forward. So. I'm Kristen Lindorf. I am the success manager at Healthy Pro. Laura is our marketing manager, and we actually were neighbors in college, so we've known each other for 15 full years, and we still like each other, so that's a good thing. I've enjoyed working with her. It's been such a treat, and we've been able to collaborate and pull a lot of things together and learn a lot, especially in the nutrition and wellness space. And Laura is probably one of the best people I know as far as grounding and keeping wellness up at the forefront and in life, especially when things get really busy. I am a dietitian, so I'm all things nutrition. So together we try to, take over the world with that nutrition and wellness. But really excited to be here with all of you today. I want you guys to share and think, as we're going through this and getting started, there's a couple of things to this slide that I wanted to pop in. One, I want you guys to share in the chat. Who is your longest lasting confidant, your friend? Who do you go to when you're feeling stressed with work? Who is your person? And then the second thing is, what are the tips and tricks that you have done in the past to recognize burnout and mindfulness? Because we're going to be using some of those throughout this presentation. We'll be asking these questions again. So if you miss them, that's okay. Just kind of keep an eye on the chat. All of these questions will be coming, but this is really meant to be an engaging conversation. So we really want to work with you and hear what you guys have to say. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to start. Let me just see, is anybody sharing in the chat yet? Okay, I want you guys to share in the chat. First things, we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness and burnout. And the first thing I want to take a step back, and this is the first thing that you're going to do to become mindful in life, in this workspace thing, in this wellness, is to have that self-awareness when you come into work every morning, or rather even, let's take it back further. When that alarm goes off in the morning, what is the first thing that is going through your mind when you feel that alarm clock? When you hear that alarm clock go and you're just like, okay, time to get ready for work. What is that first feeling that comes? Is it, I love my job, I'm excited to get going? Is it, another day? Is it, I can do this? It's a sense of determination. Share in the chat what you guys are feeling when you guys wake up in the morning, getting ready for work and getting ready. Gratitude, I love that, Debbie, that's fantastic. It's wonderful. Gratitude every day, Jocelyn, very great. Wonderful. Thinking of the things you can accomplish. Thank goodness I get another day. Wonderful. I love this. People are loving, what do I have to do that won't be stressful? I have that one too. Yes. That's even coming from that place of gratitude as well. What can I do? What do I have to look forward to in the day? That's so great. Wonderful. Love that. So that is just the first thing that you want to do. When you wake up, it's that self-awareness of the mood I'm in, what I'm ready to accomplish. I love that, starting with gratitude, Julia. That's fantastic. Can I go back to sleep? Hopefully I can get some things off my desk. Will I get to nap? Looking forward to the morning coffee. Very good. I love that. This is that first piece of self-awareness, you guys. This is being mindful about your day. And I can tell you that with every single person I've ever interacted with, firefighting, very good. We get in, we wake up, we have that mindfulness space when we first get up, and all these thoughts are racing through our minds. And then we get into the firefighting mode. I love that you said that, Rosemary. It suddenly becomes from a state of being to getting into and accomplishing task after task after task. And sometimes we then forget to have that self-awareness. The entire focus is on that initial that task that's right in front of us. And I think to a certain degree, that takes it to that next level where we lose a sense of situation, where we may be focused on this one exact task that we're on, but we're losing touch with maybe the people around us or the other situations that may need our attention, or maybe we're trying to focus on too many that we're not really able to focus on the situation around us and have that true situational awareness. And that's, I think, when it becomes that firefighting and that overall stress. And working in food service, I mean, I think if I were to take a look at the time when we all sat down in that interview and said, this is the right job for me. Yes, I can multitask. Here's the resume things that I am really good at, that I really want this job. How many of you really sat back when you said that you were taking on this directorship position, recognized that you were going to be, the chef, the business manager, the firefighter, the mentor to the students, however many hats that you guys are wearing, recognize just how much pressure that might put on you. And so I think with that, what we want to talk about a little bit is just recognizing the signs of burnout before they get too big and how to firefight well. And I love the term firefighting because think about a firefighter. You're going into this blazing building and you have no idea what's going to fall, what's going to burn, what's going to happen, what the stress situations, what the triggers are. But a firefighter can go in and navigate around any of that and get what he needs to done and get out of there safely, quickly, and well, and do so calmly. And that's because they have, one, the tools that they need. Two, they understand the environment that they're going in, and they understand the boundaries of that environment and what they can and cannot do. And it's such a great analogy to be able to kind of put yourself in that self-awareness, that situational awareness space as you're going into your day-to-day. And so we really want to just talk a little bit about how to wrap your arms around your job, wrap your arms around the things that you're doing, especially since we've had this last year where you have literally been firefighting with, I guess I shouldn't say literally because maybe you have, but the pandemic, having to pivot, having to do all of these exhausting things in order to keep things afloat, especially with less people, our budget constraints, things like that. We recognize what you're going through. So throw in the chat there. I love everything you guys have shared so far. Which of these areas between the self-awareness, situational awareness, feeling burnout, firefighting, where do you find yourself the most often right now? And maybe share why. I think that's another thing. This is meant to be a conversation, so feel free to pop anything you can in the chat.
And as you guys are putting some comments into the chat, Minnie, I have to say I love your comment of, what's one of the first thoughts you get today, of what stories will I get from the children today? We're definitely going to be talking about that a little bit later. But that's just such a wonderful comment. And I'm loving all these comments. I work out at 4:30 a.m., Jacqueline said. Major props to you for that. That's impressive. But yeah, keep sharing with us what you're experiencing of these items here. We're going to chat about this and hopefully get to cover some of the techniques that we have found have been helpful in our lives and what we've learned from other people around us as well.
Absolutely. Very good. And Vicki, I love your answer. Combination. It varies throughout the day. Sometimes you're feeling stressed. Sometimes you feel like you've got it. Understaffed, packing lunches, delivering under one school, under construction. Rosemary, you're feeling it, girl. I'm telling you, that's impressive. Janice, burnout signs, absolutely. Situational awareness, understaffed. That really requires that situational awareness because you don't have as many people to work with. All right. Very good. Thank you all for sharing. All right. We're going to go ahead and head over to the next slide. Laura, I'm going to let you take the reins from here.
All right. And this is one of the interesting things to me as we started digging into, are there different types of burnout? What are the signs of burnout? What we're hoping to accomplish here is, I think sometimes we know that we might be burned out, but we can't necessarily put words around it. We know that it's there, but if we can articulate and wrap some language around it, it can help us be able to either identify what it is we need to do, what it is we can what conversations we need to have, what support we might need. So understanding the types of burnout and what some of the signs are will help inform those conversations and help inform kind of our action plan. But as we were doing some of this research, there were 3 different types of burnout. And my guess is there are at least one of these that you've probably felt as you have been dealing with all the many things that you've been working with over the last year. But the first is overload burnout. And my guess is that's the one that's probably the most common with this group here. So if that's something you relate to, put it in the chat. It's when you are having to do more with less over a constant chronic period of time. So you're having to do more meals or find a different way to do meals, or you're having issues with the supply chain and your inventory, your product, trying to figure out how are we doing hybrid? What's the serving style going to be? You're doing this all the time. Things are changing all the time. I mean, I remember when this was first starting to hit last March, it seemed like things were changing weekly. And so you were having to pivot, as we said, that might be overused, but pivot constantly. And so you're always trying to figure out, what am I doing this week? What am I doing this next week? That is absolutely overload burnout, especially when you're looking at doing that for over a year. I think we're used to understanding what stress is in the acute way, but when it becomes chronic and ends up being a 12-month or 14-month or 15-month thing, overload, absolutely. So that's one of the types of burnout that we've seen. Under challenged burnout, my guess is this isn't as much of what you might experience in your role, but this might be for some. But am I not getting an opportunity to grow? Am I not finding a way to be challenged in a way that's exciting or a little bit exhilarating at times? If any of you are familiar with, her name is Whitney Johnson, and she has something called the S curve of work, where once you start to become pretty good at what you do, you go up the S curve, you're challenged, you're intrigued, you're interested by it, then you plateau. And if you're not challenged to get to the next thing, it's really hard to maintain a similar level of enthusiasm as you did as you're learning and as you're being challenged. So that might be another form of burnout that you're experiencing as well. And another is neglect burnout. And this one looked a little different than I thought when I initially read the word. I thought it might have been feeling unappreciated. And that might be the case in some instances, but it was also, by the definition, feeling like you're helpless in your role. So it might not be enough support from administration, as we've seen here. Or it might be imposter syndrome, like, do I have the skills adequate in order to accomplish what I need? Do I have the support that I need to accomplish what I need to do? So those are the three different types of burnout. And I love this comment, Jacqueline, about physically after the first 4 months, it was exciting and stressful. And then as time went on, it became complacent. And all the changes that were happening, it's easy to become disengaged. And that is absolutely one of the signs of burnout is disengagement. You can't maintain that pedal to the metal, emotional, daunting task for that amount of time without having some impact. So that is increasing disengagement is absolutely one of the signs of burnout. And as we've seen here in the chat already, feeling overworked, overwhelmed, and stressed all the time. You can maintain something in short sprints. You can maintain something for a day at a time, a week at a time, maybe a month at a time, or a couple months at a time. But when it is 14, 15, 16 months, it becomes a challenge to maintain that. And our bodies and our minds and our souls can't maintain that and can't do that all the time. Another sign might be negativity and lack of enthusiasm. And these are very interconnected, you'll probably notice as well. But as Kristen was saying earlier, the question of what's the first thing you think about in the morning? If initially it was very positive of gratitude and what stories am I going to hear from the children today? And I'm excited to see what I can accomplish today. But if that then starts to shift to something more negative, that's when you can know that those are some signs of burnout, especially if you're naturally more positive or if you've trained your mindset to be more positive and all of a sudden it's very difficult to maintain that positivity. That might be a sign of burnout as well. Another one that I thought was very interesting was feeling uninspired or disconnected, similar to disengagement. But, when you've got these goals and you're used to being able to kind of push towards them and have some sort of excitement and enthusiasm towards that, but all of a sudden you can't maintain that anymore because you've been pushing for too much for too long and you're not able to do your job as well as you'd like, whether the emotional strength isn't there, the emotional reserves aren't there, the mental or physical reserves, that disconnection from your goals or an inspired oomph to get to your goals, that can also be a sign of burnout as well. Julie, that's a fantastic comment. Feeling lost. I think that can be very, very common of what is my goal here and how do I get to it when I'm feeling unsupported or I'm feeling tired or I'm feeling just weary. How can I maintain this in order to get to where I need to go? And I think these are all very much tied up as well with decreasing energy and morale. I think we've seen that a lot. I know some of the comments I've seen in the different Facebook groups, for example, have just been eye-opening for me of I'm feeling unappreciated or I'm feeling like I'm doing all this work. I'm having to do more with less. I'm not getting, whether it's appreciated, I'm not getting acknowledged. Other departments are getting raises. We're not getting raises. Like, how are we supposed to manage that? When there's decreasing energy and morale, it's very, very hard to recover from that. And so what we're going to talk about today is when you start to see some of these signs of burnout, when you start to see things kind of starting to go down a little bit, Are there different tips and tricks that can help pull up or prevent the spiral from getting worse? Now, burnout is usually many contributing factors are involved, and so it's not a quick fix. It's not an easy fix. But hopefully today, as we talk about different tips and tricks, but also mindset things and boundaries, can these help create a situation where you can find yourself re-energized, reinvigorated? I absolutely love Dale's keynote this morning, and I found it invigorating. This encouragement of these are the things we've done. We've done incredible work. We were able to draw from these emotional and mental reserves for the last year plus and do this incredible work. Where can we draw from these reserves now? Or what boundaries do we need to set up in place so that we can do this now? And Janice, that's such a fantastic comment. We're too overscheduled and overworked to even take vacation time. How can we recover and not implode? That is a fantastic question. I wish there were an easy answer there. We're going to try and answer that as best we can throughout this here today.
All right, so we're going to go back into mindfulness a little bit, and I think that having that sense of mindfulness is really going to be the big key to answering some of these questions that you're having. I love that. Who was it? Rhonda, you said that there's no stability. Janice, the overwhelm, feeling overscheduled, like you can't ever take time for yourself, let alone vacation time. Absolutely, it is, and it can be a struggle to go in every single day. And so I think one of the big things that we tend to do is we put our mind on all of the external factors that are around us. And that is where we feel that overbooking, that overschedule, that desire, because we feel like our life is being dictated by all of the situations that are around us, all of the fires that we need to put out, and all of the pieces of the puzzle that we need to put back together to make sure that everything can run smoothly. We have our fingers in so many different pots, wearing all of these different hats. And so I think what really helps is to, when you wake up in the morning, recognize what your role is in every experience. And I think going through the list of experiences, we all go through the list of possible experiences that we're going to have that day. That's how we get through the day. We have to try to plan for the best and try to plan for the worst. And so recognizing the ones where you find yourself trapped the most often, whether it's food is going bad, or the orders aren't coming in, or there's not availability of specific orders, or there's cleanup that needs to be taken care of, and you have to oversee all of these things. There's definitely, you're a piece of everything that could possibly go wrong, and you're also a piece that has to put on a smile in order to make sure everything goes right. And so I think taking a step to say, what is my defined role in every experience? And really even taking that question a step further and saying, do I need to be a part of every experience? And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to prioritize that and really finding the value of prioritization in your day. There is definitely a shortage of staff. There's definitely a gap in knowledge where you have a handle on your position and on the roles that you take in. And there are times that things happen where it would take you twice as long to explain it to somebody else than to just do it yourself. And so you find yourself kind of just in that reactive mode, that fight or flight mode. And we're going to talk more about that. But finding the value of prioritization, and also accepting that every single day that people are going to see and value your sincere effort with imperfections, and that accomplishes far more than any frustrated efforts to achieve impossible perfection. Days are never going to be perfect. So I loved that we had people who were saying, I wake up with gratitude on my mind. I start my day with gratitude. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I'll wake up and I'll start thinking about the day, and it starts to go into that negative spiral. So I'll switch to gratitude. So I don't always start with gratitude, but I'm like, no, I got to be grateful. I got to, there's those times. And so I do, I put myself back into that grateful spot, and it does help. But even recognizing that those first feelings of, okay, can I be grateful today? What do I have to be grateful for? Those feelings of emptiness at the very beginning of the day, they were still there and they need to be acknowledged. And so accepting that sincere effort, while it may not be perfect, is going to be far more appreciated than walking around frustrated, hoping that you can just get everything done perfectly. And then also having that balanced control in your work life rather than being controlled by it. I think taking a sincere inventory and saying, how much of my day is versus proactive, and being able to, if you feel like it's more reactive than proactive, switch that balance. So it's really key to be able to understand those pieces. And I want you guys to throw in the chat in here, how many of you find yourselves in a place where you are being controlled by it? And what is it that is controlling you often? Is it a lack of staffing? Is it that, you can't control what's available to order because of, if there's not availability of the food or whatever the case may be? Everyone type into the chat, what is your current balance? Is it more proactive or more reactive?
And as you guys are putting that into the chat, we're going to go over a few tips that might help as you start to recognize signs of fight or flight or stress or even beginning of burnout. A few things that might help. And some of these you might think, okay, this girl is a little nutty. She's a little woo-woo. Probably true. But some of these things are things that have helped me dramatically, as I have myself. I've struggled with health problems for about 25 years now, some kind of chronic stuff. And some of these have really, really helped me in balancing my body, bringing the stress down, and making things much more manageable. So I was fascinated. There is so much research around breathing. And I think sometimes we forget how powerful breath can be. And I think it's become a little bit more well-known in the last, decade, 2 decades as, kind of yoga, meditation, mindfulness, all of those have become a little bit more mainstream. But one of the things I found really interesting is there are different breathing techniques that can help. I love the box breathing technique. So we're going to try a couple of these, try them and see what works for you. So the first one, let's try box breathing a little bit. It's where you inhale for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you exhale for 4, and then you hold again after the exhale for 4. So let's try all of that together, see if we can kind of bring a little bit of Zen. Maybe Kristen, if you could narrate the 4 seconds as we go. But we're just going to inhale for 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and inhale. 1.
Hold on one second. We've got to hold at the end of the exhale.
Holding. Sorry, this is why Laura's the expert. She needs to be the one narrating.
I got to narrate here. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the tricky part. On each end of the inhale and exhale, there's 4 seconds where you hold it, and that helps your body really kind of release a little bit. It's different from some of the other techniques, but the box breathing technique I found has just been really helpful for settling me down when I get a little bit wound up. You can imagine putting on a conference can be a little stressful. And so I've used box breathing a whole bunch this week, and it's been helpful in calming me down. So let's all try that as a group together. I wish we were all on video so we could see how kind of fun we look as we're doing it. But let's try just box breathing again. So inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. And hold for 4. Feels good. Another one that you can do is the 4-7-8 technique. And that's really good also for when you inhale, it increases your heart rate a little bit. When you hold, it kind of is trying to figure out what to do. And then when you exhale, it decreases your heart rate. So if you're inhaling for 4, and then you're holding for 7, and then exhaling for 8, that has a really interesting impact on bringing your kind of stress level down, bringing the cortisol levels down a little bit. There are fascinating articles. We've got them linked here, and I've got dozens more articles that we can link as we get these presentations out. If you want to do any of the reading around the research, some of this, it's absolutely fascinating research. Everything from helping with insomnia to decreasing. I had a whole list of things, and I didn't put them on the slide, but it was really, really interesting as far as what can be done. Lowers cortisol. It seems so simple that I think sometimes we forget how helpful it can be. But one of the things I loved that a clinical professor of psychiatry at New York Medical College said was, if you breathe correctly, your mind will calm down. And I know for those of us that as we're finding we're maybe spiraling a little bit or starting to think through all the millions of things that have to be done, if we can breathe properly and stop it in its tracks as far as the kind of spiraling and getting a little crazy, we can help calm ourselves down. Another paragraph that I thought was very interesting was that research shows that different emotions are associated with different forms of breathing. So changing how we breathe can change how we feel. For example, when you feel joy, your breathing will be regular, deep, and slow. If you feel anxious or angry, your breathing will be irregular, short, fast, and shallow. When you follow breathing patterns associated with different emotions, you'll actually begin to feel those corresponding emotions. So you can control a little bit of where your emotions go based on how you breathe. So again, it might seem super simple, it might seem a little hokey, but it's incredibly powerful. And try these different techniques. Try the box breathing and try the 4-7-8 and see which ones of those help you a little bit. Janice, yes, I can absolutely send those quotes. Thank you for that. There's other different techniques too. If you've heard of a book called Oxygen Advantage, I want to say his name is Patrick McKeon. I remember hearing him on a podcast years ago. He actually talks about how we inhale, we breathe too deeply, and we actually need to hold more on the out breath. So try that as well. Check out his stuff. See which of these techniques works for you. All right, so for another tip, and this is the one where you're like, okay, this girl's a little woo-woo. How's this going to go? I shared this with a friend of mine. It's actually my friend's 16-year-old daughter who was trying out for a big choir in the area a few weeks ago. And she was so stressed. She was kind of shaking a little bit. And so I taught her this technique. And she texted me the next morning and was like, that is amazing. What else can you do that's like this? So there are some really interesting techniques for if you find yourself spiraling, if you find yourself starting to get a little shaky or a little agitated or a little something, take the pads of your fingers and put them over your eyebrows. And you hold them there for as long as you need until you can start to feel the pulse under your fingertips. So it might take 1 minute, it might take 2 minutes, it might take 3 minutes, but think about whatever it is that is giving you that anxiety, that is causing you to go into that fight or flight response. And it brings the blood back to your forebrain instead of going to your limbs as you're in that fight or flight response. And it helps your body process whatever emotion it is that you're going through with just a better state of mind. It helps you get out of that fight or flight better. You can even do it as sometimes I'll do it at night as I'm trying to fall asleep. I will bring up whatever I can throughout the day that was bothering me, and I'll just put my hands here and wait till I feel, and you'll feel the pulse is sometimes a little different on each side. You want them to line up. That's when you know that you're getting in balance at that point. So try that, see how that works. That's something I found effective. My friend's daughter found it really effective. She was so excited because she made the choir as, I think, a younger person that usually makes it. So she was super excited to not feel as stressed going into that audition, that tryout. Another tip, and this goes back to Minnie, what you were talking about earlier, of what stories will I get from the children today? I know a couple people have mentioned in this chat, Dale mentioned it in her keynote, of laugh as much as you can. Like find a way to have some perspective, find a way to laugh, find a way to have some joy. I have an aunt that I think is a little bit crazy in all the best ways, and her daughters years ago wrote a book. It's like a 20-page book of funny joke stories. Whenever I need a little pick-me-up, I'm not kidding, I pull that out and I read it because it's entertaining and it's hilarious and it's fun, and I get to connect with my aunt in that way. So is there something you can do that immediately brings some joy or some laughter or some fun in your life? Put it in chat of something that helps you shift your mindset. And Minnie, I loved your comment earlier. What stories will I get from the kids today? I mean, kids are a constant source of laughter and joy and fun, and you never know what questions they're going to ask, right? So what are some ways that you have shifted your mindset? And what are some of your calming tips? I know that when I find I shift my perspective as best I can, and sometimes we realize I'm going to need a little bit of help shifting this perspective, whether it's a conversation you need to have with a coworker, or a conversation with your boss as far as feeling burnout. But even sometimes those conversations can help shift the mindset as well, of just understanding, okay, is there something that I'm not understanding here that would be helpful if I could see a different perspective? Maybe I need to understand a little bit better what is part of my job description here, or what is required of me or expected of me in this role, and how can I get my mindset shifted in a way that can absorb and receive that a little bit better. But share with us some of your calming tips. Do you have a breathing technique that works for you? Do you have a kind of an energy technique of bringing the blood to your forebrain that can help when you're getting in fight or flight mode? Please share. We'd love to learn from you and see what experiences you have.
Wonderful.
But Kristen, I will turn it back to you now.
Oh, that's great. And thank you so much. And I love the breathing technique, because the reality is that we do often spend more time. So just kind of going into the medical side of things, and I am no doctor, so I won't pretend to be speaking medically, but as a nutritionist, we have learned about what's called metabolic acidosis or alkalosis. And basically what happens is the air that you're breathing does help stabilize your body. That's a very real physiological change that happens. And when we're in a place where we're holding our breath, when we're in a place where we're kind of rigid and feeling like we're always on edge, we're actually taking in a lot more carbon dioxide, and we're breathing quickly. And so we're breathing in a lot of we're breathing in, and we're not letting ourselves hold that oxygen in our body long enough, because we're breathing heavily and we're letting all of that out, but we're building carbon dioxide in our body. And that is actually what causes the pain that we feel when we've like worked out and things like that, because you're breathing so heavily. And so holding your breath long enough to allow your body to absorb and use that oxygen and to replenish your blood stores. And then Laura, with bringing it up here, when you're in that stressful point, your body is ready to react to anything, and that's why the blood goes to your limbs. But what that does is it allows that oxygen to come to your brain, and you are able to think clearly. And so I love hearing you tell all of these in different fragments, because they all tie together, and they're so, if you dive into the medical research of it, is absolutely all backed up. And so I'm so grateful that you guys were able to share all of the reactive natures that you have in your jobs, between staff shortages, having to work with your superintendents and your administrative people to make sure that things are getting done, and that budgets are being met, and that metrics are being met, and that there's so many requests, and that you're constantly changing your menus and things like that. I mean, all of this is exactly what we see in the workplace, and want to help you to be able to wrap your arms around. Laura, thanks for sending in those quotes, and definitely please share, what some of your calming tips are. What do you do to take that deep breath during the day? And what are some of those tricks to help you shift that mindset to when you're recognizing that burnout or that stress level rise, or your blood pressure rising? What do you do to take that deep breath and to calm down? Would love to hear those in the chat. All right. So the next thing that I want to dive into is boundaries. And I think this is one of the biggest keys that we find ourselves short of in a day-to-day, especially in that reactive space, because we feel like we need to answer all of the calls. We need to handle all of the fires at once. And I think that we tend, because we're in a reactive mode, it's just like, you know what, just turn on the fire hose. I'm ready. We'll get through it. And at some point, the end of the day is going to come. And that's just not fair to you, because fire hoses have a lot of pressure behind them, and it's just no fun. So the first thing I would recommend is, when you come in, granted, you guys have orders that may be coming in and emergencies that may happen. So I'm not going to say don't check your email. In certain spaces that I would even actually say don't even check your email when you get in. There is a time and a space to handle for email, and not everybody's question or need for your input is a crisis. And when we come into our workday with that reactive space, we feel like every single request for everything is a crisis. And it might not be. It really might not be. And so I would say don't check your email for more than 5 minutes when you get in. And unless there's like exclamation points or urgent or whatever the case may be in the email, don't answer it right then. You're there to make sure that the students get fed. And if there's nothing that's going to stop breakfast from happening for those kids, focus on that. That is your role, is to make sure that the students are able to get their breakfast, and that they're able to be safe, and that your staff has the support that they need in a positive way. And so don't burden yourself with all of the email at this time. It can wait. And there are times during the day where things are lulled a little bit. You're not preparing for a meal, probably after lunch, that much of this can be handled. And feel free to throw in the chat if I'm totally wrong and you're like, no, I can't imagine not fixing my email in the morning. Feel free to throw it in there. Maybe we can get some tips from one another from those who might be doing this right. But if you can really think through any reason why you have to answer all of your emails in the morning, then feel free to let us know. But for the most part, letting it wait is actually the best way to do it, because it says I'm in control of my day. I am not walking into my office and suddenly being bombarded by too many requests. The next thing is empowering your team to accept responsibility. I think there are many, many times that someone forgot to do this or didn't do that, or they called in, and many times if they're sick, that's definitely a different thing than a lack of planning, but I'm going to be late because of this, or I didn't finish this task, whatever the case may be. becomes a crisis, and we feel like as leaders in our group that we need to make up for that gap. And I think that doesn't necessarily teach our staff to step up. That doesn't teach our staff to respect our leadership and to respect our personal time. And sometimes, if you really think about it, if you were to let that consequence or that rough spot fall through, or to go through, that it'll teach a lesson. And so really take the time before you react to any sort of shortage on someone's lack of planning. Don't make it a crisis if it doesn't need to be. If we can push through it and we can find a way to swallow it and move ahead or forge ahead and allow a little bit of pain or discomfort to learn that lesson so that it doesn't happen again, empower your team to accept that responsibility. Or even better yet, empower your team to rally behind that shortfall, to come in and step in for their coworker and say, you know what, they didn't quite get this, let me help here. And allow them to pull together, because that helps you to take a higher level position and a higher level perspective and allow people to learn around you rather than just, I'll take care of it. Teaching them to run and to step up from crawling to walking to running, it helps you to be able to trust and see their capabilities more. It helps them to understand and have more confidence in every action that they take on your behalf with your staff. And it really does help you to feel more support from below. And so empower your team to accept responsibility and don't allow their lack of planning to create crises for you. Then there's the 80-20 rule. If anybody is ever business minded or kind of reading those Run Your Business Well books, you'll find that there's this big rule of 80-20, that 80% of the results in your business or in your activities tend to come from 20% of the inputs. So for example, all of the good things all of the hard work probably comes from 20% of the staff, or all of your revenue probably comes from 20% of your menu, the most popular items, those kinds of things. But there's another hidden 80-20 rule that they speak about in business leadership, which is if any of your staff members can do something 80% as good as you can, find a way to delegate it to that person, because you trying to do everything at 100% is going to result in probably 60% of your quality anyway. So if you can find somebody who is able to do 80% and accepts that imperfect but sincere action, then you find a way to delegate it. And that's why I started with the question, who is your confidant at work? Who is your friend at work? Who's somebody that understands you? Go to that person and say, let's collaborate. What are some things that you can help me with? And then ask that person who they talk to and who they can delegate and collaborate with, and create this chain of everybody being able to back each other up to about 80%. And you're going to find that you build trust in your staff members. B, you find yourself in places of vulnerability, and vulnerability is one of the most beautiful places to be with your staff. Not that you should be, you don't want to be putting yourself in a place where you're like discredited or you lose their confidence or anything like that, but be honest with them and say, I can't do everything. That helps them to be able to relate to you more. They are able to see a camaraderie between your relationship, definitely a leadership to staff role, but they're able to see that you're not perfect and that you're trying, and they're able to pick up on that sincere effort. And that is huge. And then the other piece that I would just definitely say as you're setting boundaries is end on time. And when I don't just mean meetings, I don't just mean lunch, I don't just mean menu planning. At the end of the day, be done. Go home and be with your family. Spend the time with those you love and find a way to keep your work at work and your home life at home so that you can disconnect, so that when you wake up the next day, it's like you're going to Disneyland all over again, because you're starting a whole new set of adventures. If you're constantly in the same place, it just gets old. And so we're balancing the two. So end on time and be with your family and do what you do best outside of work. So take the time to set those boundaries, and we're going to even get in a little bit deeper with this when it comes to finding the support from above. I know many of you guys mentioned feeling a little bit of that lack of appreciation or not feeling like your administrative staff is understanding the things that you're going through, and that you have to do that more with less, and that it becomes very overwhelming. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move ahead as well. So anybody, just as you're getting into it, put in the chat, what are some of the boundaries that you've had to set that have kind of been a little bit more uncomfortable at first, but what are some of the things that you've been able to do to offload some of your efforts, or to delegate some of them, or to help encourage your staff to step up? What are some of the things that you have done that have been helpful in setting boundaries in your workday so that you can have more control rather than have your workday control you and keep you in that reactive space? And if you haven't, have any of these ideas appealed to you? Let us know in the chat if you're like, oh yeah, I want to learn a little more how to do that. We can give you guys some tips.
Awesome. I love seeing these responses that come in. Maureen, block schedule, including time for wellness activities, working, walk, and talk. My goodness, yes.
Brilliant.
That's actually going to be the first thing I'm going to talk about here is I read this book. I'd been hearing about it from several friends. And then when my boss mentioned reading it, I was like, yes, I'm going to get this book. It's called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And he is a big, big fan of creativity as a result of when you're getting outside and you're disconnected from things. And if you walk, I swear some of the best ideas come from walks. For me, it's walks, or if I can be in or on water. So I live about 20 minutes from the beach. I like to paddleboard. I like to go swimming in the Pacific whenever I can, or walks on the beach. So those are like my creative times. And gratefully, and I'm not just saying that because he's here, but my boss has given us permission. Like if you have some creative work, go out for a walk. Like the best creative ideas don't happen when you're behind a computer all day. And maybe that's the case for you too. Maybe you have a boss that is wonderfully recognizes that and understands that sometimes creativity, you need to disconnect for a little bit. And being outside in nature is one of just the best ways to get a break from that burnout and also increase your creativity. If you're trying to figure out how am I going to figure out how to best work this menu, or what can I do here, maybe a walk might help. There's something about doing some sort of repetitive motion, being outside walking, that gets the brain juices flowing in a different way. Jacqueline, I love this. Wish I could bring my treadmill to work. Isn't that true? I love that. There's just something really powerful about walking, even though it's like breathing. It's very simple. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's just a walk. I used to hate walking. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, any sport I could find, I would play. And so the idea of walking just seems so, I don't know, it wasn't my thing, but I've become a big fan of it in the last several years, especially as I'm trying to disconnect from technology sometimes and better let my brain have a break. We need that in order to think well and in order to think creatively. So walking can be a great way in order to both increase your creativity and to help avoid burnout. If you can get outside, you can get some fresh air, you can walk, you can get some exercise. It's fantastic. Sunlight, fresh air, also incredible. I believe it was Jacqueline who earlier mentioned waking up at 4:30 every day and exercising. That is incredible. I wish I had that dedication and discipline. I've got a little machine or contraption behind me so I can do pull-ups and leg lifts and dips and resistance band work and stuff like that. So I've been trying to focus on exercise as well. I'm not as dedicated as 4:30 a.m., but it's also been really interesting to see. I rededicated myself to fitness about 2 years ago. And went back to the gym, started lifting weights again. I'd done it all through college, and then I totally got out of the habit just working and being busy and having a life and those different kinds of things. So I realized I needed to refocus on it. And it's had a huge impact on me. It's been really, really nice to be able to see my body can do hard things. And I found that sometimes when I force my body to do hard things and lift heavy weights, I notice my mind then can do heavy things as well. Sometimes you think I have to be mentally or emotionally ready to do physical things. And I've found sometimes when I can do physical hard things, it then works the other way as well. Another thing that's been really helpful for me this last year is I've gotten into pickleball, which I initially thought was for like elderly women, my grandmother's age kind of a thing. I'm finding that's not true. It's been a really, really fun thing. And I've gotten together with friends 2 to 3 times a week and we play pickleball and we have a blast doing it. That has been huge for me in my mental and physical health in the last year. Is there something you can find that you can do that will give you that similar break, that will give your body and your mind what it needs in order to refuel and recharge? Even Tuesday night, I was kind of stressed about this conference today, and I could tell I was needing a physical break. I could tell I needed to get out and run around a little bit. So I messaged my friends and said, okay, pickleball, 7 o'clock tonight, who's in? And we had a great group, and it was exactly what I needed to not think about work for a couple hours. And it was fantastic. Then I was able to be recharged and I was able to get back to it later that night. So find things that you can do that will give your body a break, that will give your mind a break, but will also recharge and strengthen both. I think that's really powerful. I know, Kristen, you have some great stuff on biofeedback and body scan and stretching and moving and breaks. Do you want to talk about those?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that I've always done in conjunction with my breathing is, especially while you're holding your breath for some of those longer ones, is taking the time to really understand where your body is. Figure out where it's tense. There are times that I will stop and I will close my eyes and I'll just assess every limb and the core of my body, and I will realize that every single inch of me is completely pent up. And so I physically have to say, okay, toes, relax. Okay, feet, relax. And make that conscious, and you will begin to feel your body change its nature. Your blood pressure will lower, your sense of calm will sit in, and it sounds so cliche to just literally go through toe by toe, or, arm, forearm, upper arm, back, that kind of thing, to go through individually with individual body parts, but to literally and physically calm them down. And so the other thing too that I've learned is I work with a chiropractor, and she's a naturopath, and she's always said that yes, stretching is good and exercise is good, but how you do it is really key as well. She says when we tend to be in that flight or fight position or that response, we tend to hunch over. We tend to be in a protective mode. How many of you guys have felt yourself just kind of gripping your fists together and your shoulders are a little bit hunched over? Not that you're necessarily in this anger mode, but you just realize that you're so tight that you're pushed forward a little bit. And so she said, when you do it, and I want you guys all to do this, get on the edge of your chair if you're there. And if not, then stand up, but do it. But what you want to do is you want to focus on stretches. Let me see if I can, there we go, bring it down a little bit. But you want to focus on stretches that open yourself up. So I want you to reach back as far as you can and see if you can bring your arms to be parallel to your shoulders. It hurts sometimes to do it, but just go ahead and do it and hold it there for 10 seconds. Behind your arms, try and go up if you can. If you're sitting, it's a little bit harder than when you're standing. You can lean forward, but try and bring them up behind you and hold that for 10 seconds and bring them in. And then do that 2 or 3 times, and you're going to begin to feel just this openness up here in the front, and it helps. You're going to feel your blood flow kind of up your neck and into your head a little bit more. So that's one of them. The other one is to go out as far as you can this way and up like this, and you might feel your shoulders pop periodically. That's how mine do it. But then try and go back almost, not all the way into a back bend, but hold that there for 10 seconds. And again, you're going to be able to feel that blood flowing up into your mind and into your brain. So go ahead and do that. Take 10 seconds and stretch all the way back. Bring it back with your elbows down and up behind you, parallel to your shoulders. Hold that. And then go out as far as you can, up and back towards the back bend area, and hold that for 10 seconds. So just doing that can help just reinvigorate and get your mind thinking, and just stop enough, because you're thinking enough about your position and not all of the things that you have going on in your head, that it gives you a little bit of a break. And then just taking breaks, remove yourself from the situation. If you have been in your office all day or sitting in front of your computer, take a 15-minute break, schedule it, and get out. Just walk out of the room and just go talk to somebody, make a phone call to somebody you care about, read a book, a chapter of a book, whatever the case may be. Just remove yourself from it so that when you come back, your mind is fresh. Because I can tell you that stewing over the same problem over and over and over, it just wears your mind down. You get tired. You're not thinking correctly. You're probably not going to react as well. But again, that sincere effort, even though it may be imperfect, coming from a fresh mind is going to have far more impact than trying to just push through it. All right, go ahead. And I love all of these that are coming in. You guys have stair steppers and listening to relaxing music and things like that. These are so great. I love that. And, Jacqueline, see if you can get your treadmill at work. Let's talk about, see what we need to do.
Also, we got to give a quick shout out to Debbie, 30 miles a week that she
walks.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely. A gratitude space. And you know what? See what that is. Find out what your gratitude space is, everybody. And awesome. 30 miles per week. That's fantastic. And so this kind of leads us into the responsibilities piece. And this is where it ties a little bit of the, what do I need? The breathing, the taking a break, the being able to get support and setting boundaries at work. This is where I want to take that and elevate it into our administrative staff and into what exactly it is we're supposed to do. And a lot of times we will take things on because it's the right thing to do. And we take on these additional responsibilities, and then we begin to accept them as part of who we are. And that's wonderful. I think that's great. That shows that you're a superhero. But accepting them once, the normal. And I think that, again, it goes back to the 80-20 rule. Are there things that you can delegate? And if you're able to delegate it, let's make sure that that's in a written form so that people are aware and have it written down that is their responsibility. And in turn, take a look at your own. What are your current responsibilities? What is listed in your job description? Really identifying, these are the core reasons why I was hired into this position. This is what I need to do. And then if there are other things that are tacked on that, are those things helping you towards the ends that you were hired for, or are they detracting you from it? And if they're detracting you from it, they need to probably be pulled off of your plate in some fashion. And so is it something that you can delegate? And if not, then that's when we need to involve the administrative staff and find a way to communicate with them how you can best fulfill the responsibilities that you were hired for. And so working within your limits, understanding, you took this job and you understood your limits at that time, and being able to work within those and stay within those. And so my suggestion would be, if you are doing things outside of your job description, find out exactly what those are, and do any of those items fit within your staff's job description? And if so, how can you bring your staff up to speed to be able to handle that, so that when that comes up, they are there and ready to go, and they say, yep, this is my responsibility. It's been communicated, it's written down, it's in my job description. I understand that this is my responsibility, rather than, oh shoot, nobody has this responsibility, I guess I'll take it. And then the other thing is understanding the gaps in those responsibilities, reviewing your job description up against the staff's job descriptions. And if there are things that happen that aren't in either, this is where we go to our administrators and we say, you know what, these are not part of the job description. I either need to get another staff member to fill these, because we all just went through a pandemic. This has never happened before. There are roles and responsibilities that just were dumped on you as a sheer result of pivoting. And it's time to redefine it. If you define it and you know it and you understand it, then you can wrap your arms around it. But with it being undefined, it just keeps you in that reactive, oh my goodness, I'll just deal with whatever comes at me space. And that's not a way to live. It's that chronic pressure that's going to create that fatigue and burnout. So understand it, define it, and work with your administrators to get those gaps filled, but don't fill them yourself. And that could even be changing job descriptions. Maybe you don't have the budget to bring on a whole new staff member, but maybe you've got some redundancy in some places. Maybe we revisit those job descriptions and you visit with those staff members in their quarterly reviews and you say, okay, let's really review what's been going on. Would you be willing to take this piece on if we move this piece over to this person who's a little bit more suited to do it? Don't hesitate to take the time to understand what resources you have and allocate them accordingly. So definitely take a look back at what you're doing and see, do your expectations and what you started with and what you are doing now, do they match the expectations that you put on yourself today? Sorry, I didn't even say that right. The expectations that you came with, do they match your expectations of yourself today? And see what we can do to bring those together so that you can move forward instead of feel like you're split in two different directions. And with that, I want you guys to, into the chat box, feel free to pop in there how many different responsibilities you feel like you're doing that are outside of that original. And again, not to say that those responsibilities don't need to get done, they do. But things that maybe you could offload and things that you could maybe share with your staff and bring in. We'd love to hear those. And then with that, we're going to get into a little bit of nutrition. And this is kind of where we talk a little bit about the physiology of it. So cortisol is the hormone in your body that prepares you for the day. It says, all right, I'm going to take this. I've got all the fires. And having it high all the time can actually be very wearing on your body physically. There's two things that happen. One, it will suppress your appetite because it's ready for a fight. It treats you as if you're about ready to fight a grizzly bear. And then afterwards, if you do find a little bit of space, then you find yourself so hungry because you have put off food for long enough. And so you want to make sure, one, that you're giving yourself the nutrients that you need. And that when that downtime comes, when you're feeling so hungry, you're not just going to the nearest comfort food to help yourself feel better, whether it's a quick pick-me-up from the Snickers bar or, getting the roast and potatoes, nothing wrong with that, but you got to have some vegetables in there. You want to get those nutrients in there because nutrients heal your body. When you are in fight or flight, your body pulls nutrients in order to give you the strength to handle your day. And so you are using those nutrients and you are are depleting them from your stores. And so it's really important that when you get out of that fight or flight, oh, you guys can't see my video anymore. Odd. Are you able to see the screen?
Seeing the screen, but missed your video.
Okay, let's see.
Although now we're not seeing your screen either.
Oh, I'm doing it. One
Good old
second.
technology.
It's coming. I know. All right. Did that work?
We can see your screen again. Yes.
Okay, but you can't see my video?
Can't see your video, but we can hear you great. So
all right. Well, I'm just going to keep on going because you guys don't need to see me. You just need to hear the content. Okay. So anyway, making sure that you're replenishing those nutrients. And then the other thing is making sure that you're taking the time to rest. Nutrition is actually stored in your muscles for a time, but when you hit that REM sleep is when those nutrients are truly released and utilized to build muscles and to build your strength for the next day. And so making sure that you're able to get your 4 or 5 cycles of REM sleep every night so that those nutrients are being utilized and not just hanging out in your body or even being stored as fat. Rest is a huge part of nutrition. And what do we tend to be deficient in when we're stressed? The first thing is prebiotics and probiotics. When we are stressed, our gut slows way down and it does not produce the good, healthy bacteria that, or even clean itself out well, because it's putting itself on hold in order to handle whatever it is that we're tackling through the day. And so they've actually done a lot of research on the mind-gut connection, and a lot of these prebiotics that help to keep your gut clean and probiotics, which are the bacteria in your stomach, the natural bacteria actually creates a hormone balance. And if you don't have a good balance in your gut, you're not going to have a great hormone balance in your mind. There's huge studies that have tied this to Alzheimer's and to other chronic fatigue and mental clarity, just deficiencies and things like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you're talking with your doctor and being sure that you're taking care of your gut really well. Antioxidants, these are what clean out your blood and keep your blood healthily flowing through your body. Electrolytes, these are the pieces that keep your cells balanced with their water and their hydration. And if you don't have enough of that, then you tend to not hold as much water in your body, which helps with cleaning out and detoxifying your body. Electrolytes are key in healing your body. And then fiber, again, with cleaning out your stomach. Those tend to be things that we're deficient in when we're stressed. And how can we supplement it? A lot of that is going to be your fruits and your vegetables, both high in fiber and high in nutrients and antioxidants. Protein helps to keep a stable digestive system. So it digests slowly. So it will help to keep your appetite, even though suppressed, it will help to keep your digestive tract moving and keep it on a steady keel. Fibers, again, with the fruits and vegetables, keeping your body detoxed. And then those fermented foods are what actually really help with your bacteria growth in your gut and making sure that you have that gut balance. So it's really important that you take the time to eat foods that have nutrients in it rather than that comfort food just to get by. Eating in a hurry is not something you want to do. You want to slow down, chew your food, let your body process it. And Laura has some suggestions here too. She's got some excellent tricks.
I do. And for the sake of time, I'm going to be very, very brief. But I found for me, one of the most effective supplements I can do is magnesium. And so I've got a couple things here. Magnesium glycinate is my favorite one to take to help me relax at night. I also make my own magnesium oil that I spray on my body, and then Epsom salt baths as well. So between those, you've got magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride, magnesium glycinate, and there's another one in there. I'm all about getting as much magnesium as possible, and I found that's made a dramatic difference in my ability to stay calm, even when things are really, really crazy around me. Because when I'm stressed, I burn through magnesium like crazy. So for me, it's magnesium, B vitamins, fermented foods, high quality protein. That's huge for me as far as what I found works well for my body.
Excellent. Wonderful. And that magnesium plays into that electrolyte imbalance, really key. So perfect. Laura, let's take us home with mindfulness.
All right, so we've talked about a few of these already here today. And I know, Maureen, I believe you mentioned the Calm app that has mini meditations, which I think is always fantastic. I know as many of my friends and I have spent more time with meditation and being thoughtful and mindful, it's been very, very helpful in understanding what is within my control, what is not, what is something that's a boundary I need to set, and what is something that I just need to figure out how to manage better. We talked about breath, which again is very, very key. We had a cool couple of quotes and a cool couple techniques that we could do around that. Balance. I thought Kristen's topic around boundaries were so key for that, of understanding, okay, where do I need to set an end time here for whether it's the day or for a meeting? Where do I need to make sure I've got those boundaries in place? Stress reduction, what can I delegate? Can I do these points of holding that there where I make sure that the blood is getting to the brain so I don't get stuck in that fight or flight response? Being aware, having awareness of what is it that I'm feeling? Is this a burnout? Which of these types of burnout is it? And how can I then go from there? Doing the body scan and then doing the soul. I love earlier of the beach walk. I think it was said earlier, it feeds my soul. And I completely empathize with that. I know that other sessions are starting now, so we're going to end this here, but we thank you for your time. We thank you for your participation, and we thank you just for your participation over the last year plus. I mean, the work that you've done has been absolutely inspiring. We love hearing your stories, and we want those stories to get out as best as possible. So please keep putting comments in chat. We'd love to hear more about how you've been able to avoid burnout or prevent burnout or deal with burnout, how you've been able to develop that resiliency. So thank you so much for your comments. It's been really instructive and really helpful. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next sessions.